This is so hard. In the center. I'm not wearing my contacts. So hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to make another video about how I survived the 2 years of IB course and just give you some general tips that I wish I would have known before I started IB. I would also rate my courses to make it more clear and help you make your choice when you're choosing subjects before you start the IB course. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive into it. It's a really long video and I will put clips to make sure that you guys can jump into whatever section that you're interested in. IBDP stands for International Baccalaureate Diploma Program. Yeah, IBDP program. It is an international academic program that sets an international standard for students, and it can be used to apply to, I think, all the universities over the world. So it's worldwide accepted. IBDP program consists of 2 years, and at the beginning of the 2 years you have to choose 6 subjects, 3 for higher level and 3 for standard level. In addition, you need to finish your EE and TOK essay plus CAS in order to pass the program. So the subject that I chose are here: Math AI HL, so Math Application and Interpretation, Chemistry HL, Economics HL, Biology SL, English Language and Literature SL, and German B SL. If you are interested in how many points I got at the end, you can check out my last video. And so I'm actually one of the exam wrote kit, so we actually took the IB final exam, and personally I think I achieved better grades with exam wrote than I would have done with non-exam wrote, so I'm happy with that. Group 1 and 2 are languages. So group 1 is like mother tongue language, like language A. Group 2 is mostly language B, but you can also pick 2 language A's if you're bilingual and stuff. What my suggestion would be, choose your strongest language for language A, because language A is a lot different than language B. If you're not so strongly about one of your language, I would suggest you to pick language B. Because for me, I would personally put a lot less effort into languages compared to the other subjects, because the other ones require more practice and stuff. German, I would give it a 10, but I'm kind of biased because I already learned German since I was grade 8, so it's never a problem for me in my German course. It is relatively easy for me. For English, I would rate it a 9 to 10 because, again, it's like a lot less effort required compared to the other sciences. It is quite important to just go watch some useful YouTube videos, like go search up tips for, I don't know, paper 1, how to get a 7 for paper 1, stuff like that. I find it really useful. Remember all those analysis tips. It helps you a lot when it comes to grading. So I ended up achieving a pretty nice grade. I picked Economics HL and I found it fine, like it's not so hard. As long as you memorize all those evaluations and diagrams, definitions, you'll be fine in the exam. There is a lot of content, but I think it's achievable, so I would rate it a 9 or an 8. If you're trying to find the easiest one, I would suggest you to do business. But again, your subject should be based on your major or the field that you want to go after high school, like intro requirements and stuff like that. So we can pick from physics, biology, chemistry, and sports science. Sports science is not considered as science for some of the countries and some of the unis, so if you're picking sports science, do check if your university are okay with it, if they consider it as a science subject. Out of the 3 sciences, physics, bio, and chem, I would say bio is the easiest and physics is the hardest. But if you're really good at like mathematical thinking and stuff, physics might be easy for you. But for most of the people, I think physics is the hardest, and the grade boundaries are also the lowest. For biology, there's a lot of content, especially for HL students, but it's pure memorization, so the difficulties should be the lowest. And for chemistry, there's a lot more content for HL students than for SL students, and a lot more calculations for HL students. So there's in general 21 units for HL, but only 11 for SL. So if you're picking HL, I would strongly recommend you to make sure that you're on schedule. Like if you find out that you're behind or your class is behind, do catch up by yourself, because if you waited till the end, it's very likely that you're not going to finish the content, but you have to take the exam. So the stress level is going to be really, really high. Personal experience. So there's 4 courses according to the new curriculum: Math AI and AA. So for AA, HL is the hardest, and then it's AI HL, which has a lot more content than AASL students. AISL is the easiest. Some of the universities also do not accept AISL, so if you want to do AISL, do check the university entry requirements. Compare AASL and AIHL, I would say one of their difference is that AIHL has a lot more content, and AIHL involves a lot more calculator calculations. AASL focuses more on hand calculations. Yeah, that's probably the biggest difference. Also, AIHL focuses more on language interpretation, including like when you're solving a mathematical problem, you have to understand the question fully. You have to interpret it sometimes before you apply the formulas. I would rate AIHL a 8. It's a bit hard for me. Like there's really a lot of content that you have to absorb and understand when you're taking the exam. So do practice constantly throughout the 2 years to make sure that you understand all the concepts, and it's pretty hard to catch up everything if you leave it till the end. One of the weaknesses for AI is also that there's very limited amount of resources that you can use for practice. So I would link a few study websites that helps you to find resources for past papers, practice questions, and hope that helped you. Group 6 is somehow like a free choice. You could either choose from the art section, like art, music, theater, or you could choose another science or another humanity. Depends on your interest. Also, like if you're doing medicine or some areas for sciences, I think some of the majors require you to do 2 sciences. So in this case, you would have to take another science for your group 6. So TOK, EE, and CAS are the 3 components, including inside the IB diploma program, that you're required to complete in order to pass and get the diploma. So for EE and TOK, you have to get at least a D to pass, and for CAS, you have to finish at least 40 reflections. As long as your number of reflections achieve the amount that needed, you will pass. Theories of knowledge, it trains more about like critical thinking, the way we see or evaluate conclusions, hypotheses, knowledge. The commonest thing you would hear is, to what extent does this make sense? To what extent is this true? To what extent is this blah 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 reliable? Like, to what extent is your memory reliable? Stuff like that. It can be fun, and especially for group discussions, it is sometimes very interesting to hear different perspectives and different ideas from others, and you would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it can also be annoying, especially when the teacher wants you to dig deeper and you don't know how deep you can go. You're like, I'm already the deepest. Anyways, I'm not strong at TOK at all, both the essay and presentation, so I wouldn't elaborate too much on this. Do check past essay papers to make sure you understand what the examiners want and how to structure your essay and stuff like that. That helps a lot. I think the students for next year only have the essay, which saves a lot more time, and you can just focus on your essay. It's a lot easier. So EE is basically a 4,000 word essay that you have to write for a single subject, and you can pick any topic within the subject. I think the deadline is like somewhere March, I'm not sure. But anyways, it's somewhere around that, and your school probably would want you to turn it in before Christmas or a bit after Christmas. So what I did is German B for my EE, and for languages, I would say it's a two-sided arrow. If you do really good, you would get really good grades. If you do okay-ish, you might just get bad grades. So it's like an A or a C. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the easiest that you can choose out of all the groups. A lot of my friends did humanities or arts, and they also get pretty decent grades. So I do think all the groups have like equal amounts of A's, if you say that way, and except sciences. If you're doing like physics or like biochem, like natural sciences, it is pretty hard to get an A. So I would suggest you to not pick sciences unless you're really interested and don't really care about how many points you would get at the end, like additional points. If you just care about the subject, you're really interested, you have a huge passion into the topic that you want to write about, then go for it. But if you do care about your grades and you do want to get full marks, like 3 marks for additional points, I would recommend you to not pick sciences. Time management. I know you guys probably have heard this so many times already. Everybody talks about time management when it comes to school, studies, and it is one of the most important topic as well. I summarized 4 tips, especially for this IB program, that I want to share with you guys. So the first one is don't start at the last minute for your IAs, your coursework, EE, TOK, essay, or prepare for an exam, your mock, your final exam, all that. Don't start at the last minute. In terms of stress level, I would say IB does not have a too high stress level, especially for grade 11, it's pretty chill. For grade 12, it does get intense and busy, but in terms of stress level, it's doable as long as you plan out your study schedules, your time, and make sure that you get things done before the last minute. Like, it would always be better to be more prepared than you should instead of less prepared than you should. One of the mistakes that I made was at the beginning of the IB program, I already told myself that I'm gonna focus on my subjects instead of my IAs, EEs, and TOKs essays, because, like, you know, additional points only 3 marks, and for your IAs for each subject, it only worth 20% of your grade, your final grade. So I told myself that I would focus on the studies and the final exam more instead of focusing on my essays, because I'm not good at writing essays. But I do think that's a mistake. It is a lot easier to get higher marks for your essays than working your ass off to move up from a 6 to a 7 for a single subject. Especially for sciences, it's a lot harder than you think. So I would really recommend you to put your effort into your essays to make sure they look stunning. Make sure you talk to your supervisors and get their comments and try your best so that you will have less pressure at the end of the day when you're doing the final exam. I was in a deep stress period when I'm taking my final exam. The second tip is don't waste your grade 11 summer. I think a lot of our IAs are already done or like required to finish before grade 12. Like our first draft, so that we'll get less pressure in grade 12. Especially for your first draft for any of your essays, it would be so much more beneficial if you try your best and just see the first draft as your final draft and make sure it's as perfect as you want to turn it in as your final copy. so that you'll get much more useful comments. It will be a lot less stress. Grade 12 is a completely different life. You have to turn in all your essays, all your IAs, your EE, your TOK essay, and you have to worry about the mock exam and wrap up all your subjects, prepare for the final exam. Like, all that stuff happens in one semester and half of it, so it's really busy. Also, like for CAS, I would also recommend you guys to do as many reflection as you can in grade 11 so that you don't have to do that much for grade 12. You would also want to save time to revise for your subjects, do your IAs, wrap up your essays instead of putting time into CAS activities. I mean, I'm not saying it's not good, but it would be a lot less stress if you don't have to do that many CAS reflections anymore. The last tip that I have is about self-taught. I know it sounds funny, but it's true. There's gonna be a lot of situations that you would not expect at the beginning of your semester, at the beginning of IB, but there's gonna be a lot of unexpected changes. So for example, for us, there's teacher lacking experience who have never taught IB. This is their first year, unfinished content. So for me, math, chemistry were the two subjects that did not get to fully go through all the content in detail. We ended up having to do self-taught for the biggest unit, organic chemistry, as well as unit 21 and unit 19. It was very painful and time-consuming. Also, IAs without useful advice, I would say. It's also one of the problems that I experienced. There's a high chance that it might happen within your 2 years of program. The last part of this video is some useful study websites that I found really helpful when I was preparing for my exams. So for chemistry, I would strongly suggest MSJ Chem. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know this website already. It's very helpful. It's on YouTube and it has its own website as well.
The videos on this channel and my website are made specifically for the International Baccalaureate DP Chemistry syllabus.
And for biology, I think it's very sufficient to just use Cognity, textbook, and your study guide. And plus past paper questions for the final exam, it is good enough for you to get a 7. I would say the most efficient way is to just read through the information in the book and check out videos if you don't understand the concept. Econ Plus Style is one of the YouTube channels that I really like, and I recommend it to all of you who are doing econ. It has a lot of useful tips and useful summaries that can be used for your final exam, and it's very good for last minute preparation. But as I said, don't do it last minute, do it before and check it out a few more times if you don't understand the concept or if you feel like you didn't catch up. For English, if you Google on YouTube, there's plenty of useful analysis videos that help you teaches you how to analyze text and how to write your analysis, how to write your essay, how to structure it, how to get high marks.
Hello everyone, and this will be a tutorial on the IB standard level English.
For German B, I would say just read more news. You can check the Logo Nachrichten if you want to practice your listening and your vocab. But do consider to ask your teacher if they have useful resources for German. Last but not least, for math, I would suggest you to check out Revision Village. It's a really good website, especially for the new curriculum. They have questions for each unit and they have practice paper for paper 1 and paper 2. I don't know if they have paper 3 practice questions. You do have to pay for it, but I think it's a great practice before you go into the exam. As well as I have another exam practice book that I bought, and I'll link it down below. You can get it from Amazon. It's an exam workbook. like a practice book. It has questions for each unit. It has 3 sets of practice questions for each paper. They have both HL and SL books. Mark schemes are included for the practice paper, but it's not included for the unit questions. That's one of the things that I don't like about this book, but in general it's still helpful. At the end of the day, I would say IB is worth it, but I do think A-levels and APs are easier than IB. Anyways, that will be the end of the video, and thank you so much for watching. Hope it's helpful. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and you found answers to your questions. If you have any other questions that I didn't cover in this video, feel free to comment down below. I'll check it out. Bye.